Angela, we know where to go?
Yes.
Are we allowing people to come in?
We love the wonderful connections that you're making. We would love if you would please take a seat.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Can I please invite grassroots grandmother of Sipniak, Doreen Bernard, to the stage for the welcome prayer. This is how we'll start.
Can you see me? Please stand. I'd like to say an opening prayer. Nindawasi, Kesadam Dandalionue, Kwe, welcome. I would like to declare that we are on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. Gisul, Great Spirit, good creator of all things, grandmothers and grandfathers of the 4 sacred directions and 4 sacred races, please hear my humble prayer. We come together today to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission and honor the recipients of the Nova Scotia Human Rights Awards. We pray and give thanks for our Mother Earth, for our sacred water, our sacred breath, the air, and our sacred fire, the sun, that provides all that is needed to live. We give thanks for all our relations, our human family, the 4-legged, the swimmers, the crawlers, the flyers, the plants, the trees, and the rocks, and for all creation that have enabled our nations to live today. We pray for all nations to become united in our commitment to protect our Mother Earth and water. We pray for a time when Mother Earth will have the same rights as humans in Canada, as some countries have already done to protect the earth and the water. We remember and offer prayers for all those who face racism and are disadvantaged, dispossessed, and oppressed in their daily lives and suffer the impacts to health, safety, and social justice due to the lack of human rights here in Canada and many places on Mother Earth. We remember that the Indigenous people living on reserves in Canada were only granted human rights on June 18, 2008. We pray for advancement in equality and dignity through reconciliation and respectful relationships based on the 7 sacred teachings of love, respect, courage, humility, honesty, wisdom, and truth. We pray that the truth and reconciliation calls to action and the United Nations declarations on the rights of Indigenous people, which has taken 20 years to develop and 10 years to adopt, that this will be implemented and provide the foundations for human rights that are needed today. We pray for protection, guidance, equality, and diversity for all, for the good of all our nations, our communities, our elders, men and women, the youth, the children and families, the leaders and the medicine people. We pray for strength and courage that encourages growth and positive change. We give thanks for the resilience that you give to us in our times of need. And we give thanks for the courage of our hearts, our female energy, and of our minds, our male energy, that empowers the potential for healing. We pray that our children and future generations will have a safe society to live and to grow with honor and dignity for being who they are, Onu, human beings. Msit Nogama, all my relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Doreen, for your blessings. My name is Christine Hansen. I'm the Director and CEO of the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission. Welcome again. With me is Floria Agdemimer. She is co-chair of Partners for Human Rights, and we're so pleased that you could all join us for this special occasion. 2017 is the 50th anniversary of the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission, and it also happens to coincide with the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We've held our celebrations just ahead of Sunday, December 10th, International Human Rights Day. Our theme today is learning from our past, building for our future, and we will hear from several Nova Scotians on their perspectives on human rights today. And the Premier of Nova Scotia, Stephen McNeil, will be joining us later in the program. Several of our commissioners and staff have joined us, as well as Partner for Human Rights. Welcome. And I wanted to mention as well that this event is being live broadcast on YouTube, and you may be able to join the conversation by following hashtag Nova Scotia Human Rights on Twitter and Instagram with the hashtag Nova Scotia Human Rights.
Thank you, Christine. Partners for Human Rights is composed of Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission and individuals from various organizations dedicated to working towards respectful and inclusive communities. The partners collaborate on initiatives and activities toward the protection and promotion of human rights in Nova Scotia and have been involved with the planning of today's celebration. And members of Partners for Human Rights are Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission, Atlantic Jewish Council, Dalhousie University, Halifax Fire and Emergency, Halifax Regional Municipality, Diversity and Inclusion, Halifax Regional Police, Nova Scotia Teachers Union, Recognize Your Potential, St. Mary's University, the Fred Smithers Center, the local Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Halifax, and the Youth Project. And these members are present, sitting here. Thank you for all your dedication. A few housekeeping items. Washrooms are just out the door, turn to your right, and again, washrooms are to your right as well. There are emergency exits, two in the back, exiting to the right of the stage, and to the parking lot on the left, one on the right at the bottom of the stage, leading to the parking lot on facing the Citadel Hill, and two at the entrance exiting the cafeteria, leading to the parking lot facing Citadel Hill.
Okay, next we're going to be showing you our 50th anniversary video, Learning from Our Past and Building for Our Future.
One of the pivotal moments was the recognition of Iowa
turned the justice system upside down in terms of systemic discrimination.
It was a big moment in society
human rights
because it brought to light
really significant.
the undercurrent
Tina Marie
that were
Forbes
moving
case
in the
from
wrong
the late
direction.
1970s.
Another
involved a little girl
pivotal
who
moment
fought
for
the
me
right to play
was
hockey.
the
So she
inclusion of
filed a complaint with the
transgender
Human Rights
protection in
Commission
our Human Rights
against
Act.
the
I think a more recent
Association.
milestone
And
was
it
the
found that they
passage
had
of
discriminated
comprehensive
against her based on
accessibility
her
legislation
gender, and
right
now
here in
all
Nova
little girls
Scotia.
in this province have the right to play hockey.
And another one that comes to mind, of course, is the Donald Marshall matter. The findings had completely turned the justice system upside down in terms of systemic discrimination.
It was a big moment in society because it brought to light the undercurrents that were moving in the wrong direction.
Another pivotal moment for me was the inclusion of transgender protection in our Human Rights Act.
I think a more recent milestone was the passage of comprehensive accessibility legislation right here in Nova Scotia. It not only brought the province into line with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, but it has set us up to be a completely accessible province by the year 2030.
We don't want to talk about issues.
we do not recognize our history and we want to move on. But the history is not in that way. And the injustices created by that history, by that legacy, are still current.
So going forward, we should be taking all of the mistakes of the past and of the present and turning it into something positive. Where have we failed? What can we do better?
It is important to recognize the dangers of unchecked prejudice and the importance of civic engagement to build a more respectful Nova Scotia.
I'm hopeful that in time, all of us working together to wipe out discrimination and racism and sexism. And that takes courage for people to actually admit their own feelings, how they may respond to people, how they would act towards people. And I think there's a lot of self-examination that needs to happen and admission that we did things wrong in the past and we're still doing some things wrong in the present. We have to admit this and then say, how do we make it better? And it's not about guilt or blame, it's about moving forward in a positive way. And the only way we can do that is by doing it together.
We have to put a lot of emphasis on education. We have to put a lot of emphasis on creating partnerships.
Well, here at the Human Rights Commission, we have been modernizing to prepare us to protect and promote human rights going into the future. We have built a virtual classroom. We are the first commission in Canada to provide free online training to the public in the area of human rights. We are the only human rights commission in Canada that has been using restorative approaches to human rights dispute resolution. We have cleared our backlogs, and commissions across the country and internationally are paying attention.
With respect to human rights, looking forward to the next 50 years, I'm hopeful that more people will be engaged in the change process, that more people will be active in the fight for rights and the protection of rights for everyone.
I'm hopeful that my 2 young grandchildren, who are beautiful young girls who are part Caucasian and part Latino, can live in a province where they don't experience discrimination.
Respect for human rights is critical to our prosperity and our well-being, and this is why it should concern every Nova Scotian.
Because when we're all included, we get better economically, we get better socially, so I think that's very important for us to think that way.
It is my hope that we will never lower our dreams to match our reality, but that we will raise our reality to match our dreams.
Some of the biggest challenges I feel that Nova Scotia is facing is human rights.
Now invite
It's
Senator
communities
Wanda
who are
Thomas
facing
Bernard up to the
land.
stage to make a special presentation.
Thank you very much. I was totally mesmerized by the video. And in preparing, so welcome to all of you. And it's so good to be here with you this morning. As I was thinking about this 50th anniversary, I began by thinking, so where was I 50 years ago and what was I doing? And honestly, I can say that I was a high school student, and my first act of fighting against racial injustice happened when I was a high school student at Graham Creighton High School. I remember actively working with my peers to challenge the racism that we were experiencing in high school. How did I know? I just knew what was fundamentally wrong, and I knew that I wanted to be part of the change process. And I began to think about some of the early years and some of that work. I was thinking about the late Senator Ruck, who was a community development officer in the Preston communities at the time. He had a youth group, and I was part of that youth group. And I remember the civil rights movement in the US, but also the civil rights movement right here in Nova Scotia. I remember that the Human Rights Commission in this province was formed because of the racial discrimination that African Nova Scotians and Mi'kmaq people were experiencing right here in this province. And so it's with that, it's calling on those memories, it's with thinking about those memories that I wanted to be here with you today to mark this 50th anniversary, to look back as we move forward. I love the theme, learning from our past and building for our future. And the building for our future really begins with us working together to make change happen. As a senator in the Senate of Canada, one of my most recent appointments in that role was actually to be elected chair of the Senate Committee on Human Rights. And I'll tell you, I feel very privileged to be there, to be doing the work, doing human rights work from that place. It has its challenges, let me tell you, but it's a wonderful place from which to continue the journey, continue the work in the fight for rights. So on behalf of the Senate of Canada, I have this presentation, this certificate. I'll just turn it so you can see it. So I'm going to present this to Christine Hansen, CEO of the Human Rights Commission, and it reads, Certificate of Recognition on behalf of the Senate of Canada to the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission for 50 years of promoting human rights in Nova Scotia. The work that you have done to foster equity, justice, inclusivity, and education sets a high standard for the province and the country to meet. Congratulations on your 50th anniversary. I can only imagine what's in store for the next 50 years. Thank you for your great contribution to our community.
Okay, next we'll present a video, Change for African Nova Scotians.
Ownership issues, communities facing racial discrimination challenges.
And when we think of consumer racial profiling, the disproportionate rates
are facing land ownership issues, communities facing racial discrimination.
And when we think of consumer racial profiling, the disproportionate rates of police checks and the placement of garbage dumps, environmental racism, there are many factors facing this province.
So many of the African Nova Scotian communities are still struggling with the positioning that they were given when they came, because most of the communities were established in the 1700s, early 1800s. And those were free blacks came, that's where they were permitted to live.
Most people of African descent in Nova Scotia are still suffering the impact of racism in absolute silence.
There has to be an acknowledgement that the struggle is real. Race is not a card that we play, but it's a life that we live. For many, this is the skin that we're in.
It's also a matter of having communication and listening. So sitting down and having what I call courageous conversations. Actually having those open and honest conversations. And they're extremely difficult to have. People do not want to have those conversations. It makes them uncomfortable. But having the courage to sit down and say, you know what? We're going to have a conversation about race and discrimination and racial profiling. And these are what they are.
Well, one of the initiatives that I'm really proud of and feels represents true progress is the work that we are doing with the African Nova Scotian community on land titles clarifications and to help people get clear title to the land that they live on. This has been a long-standing issue, but you know what? We have to take the time to get it right for the community.
I'm hopeful that as we educate and empower people, that positive change will come. As Dr. Martin Luther King said, a change will not happen until we change ourselves and our own way of thinking. And we recognize that we are all in this together.
I am optimistic about the fact that more people are getting involved. When I stop and think of the civil rights movement in the States with Martin Luther King Jr., the reason it was as successful as it was because it wasn't just people of African descent, it was everybody.
It is the UN Decade of People of African Descent, and we have been working with community and various levels of government on a number of initiatives.
There are still many challenges facing the African Nova Scotian community. That being said, I believe we're on the right path to healing and resolution. The government of Nova Scotia is committed and is taking action on addressing the disparities and systemic racism that have faced the African Nova Scotian community for generations. Our goal is to provide full access to all Nova Scotians in all facets of society.
The Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission is pleased to be able to recognize Nova Scotians making a difference in the area of human rights in our province. Award recipients are nominated by their peers in 3 categories: youth, group organization, and individual awards. All nominees must reside in Nova Scotia and demonstrate a commitment to human rights values, such as inclusion, equity, and fairness. The individual awards are extended in the name of the late Burnley Allen Rocky Jones, and I would like to invite Tracy Grant Jones to the stage to tell us more about this distinguished award.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for allowing me to present this award and be up here as it's presented in my father's name. But I also want to take the time to acknowledge other family members who are present here today. I'd like to acknowledge my dad's wife Sharon is here, my sister Falami, and my niece and my nephew Manani and Kajani, and I think I captured everybody, and they're sitting right over there. Thank you for being here. 50 years ago, my dad was part of a movement that led to the creation of the Human Rights Commission and loudly engaged in a discourse on racism in our province. He was dedicated to human rights, and his work in Nova Scotia particularly focused on the rights of Indigenous and African Nova Scotian peoples, along with all marginalized people in the province. He instilled this commitment in his children, in his grandchildren, and many others who stood with him to fight the fight. As we honor those today in their work in human rights, we must continue to fight against anti-Black racism, homophobia, ableism, sexism, and all forms of racism and discrimination. And we should be fighting for the human rights of all people in Nova Scotia. As we honor the theme, learning from our past, building our future, I believe this is exactly what my father was talking about. We stand on great shoulders, and on those great shoulders, we build a future for tomorrow.
Thank you, Tracy. The first award we will give is a posthumous one to recognize Wade Smith, an inspiring African Nova Scotian who led by example. He was an educator who worked tirelessly to promote human rights education and a passionate humanitarian who mentored youth towards success. He was the principal of this school, and we are pleased to be able to recognize him here. His nomination was provided by Wade's school colleagues. He believed in giving back to his community. He valued diversity, strived to create a positive learning environment for all, and lived by the each one, teach one philosophy. I would like to invite to the stage community leader, pastor, Reverend Dr. Leonard Anderson, who had a close relationship with Wade Smith and his family, to present this award to Wade's wife Sherry and his son Jackson in recognition of his leadership in human rights, inclusive education, and community mentorship. I would also invite Wade's brother, Craig Smith, to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Senator Bernard, Mr. Premier, Mr. Burrow, Minister Whalen, Councillor Hensby and Smith, and any other dignitaries that I've missed here in looking. Honored guests, fellow recipients, and friends. I've been asked on behalf of my sister-in-law Sherry, Wade's wife, and his sons Jaden and Jackson, Jaden, who's at St. FX right now in the midst of exams, to say a few words. And Jaden said to me last night that he wanted to make sure that he was mentioned. So Jackson, you have to tell Jaden I said his name. There aren't many times in your life that you receive an award in common, and I'm, on a personal note, I'm very honored and pleased to say that a few years ago I received this award, and I am honored and blessed to share that with that distinction with my younger brother. Last night I was sitting back, and I watched Wade's TED Talk at Mount St. Vincent University that he gave in 2016. What did I see? I saw my brother, my baby brother at his best, talking about what inspires him, why he gives back, and his passions. He kept it simple in true Wade Smith fashion. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, "Giving back was never a choice for me, it was an obligation. I get up every day and I go to work and I try to make a difference in someone's life." What happens when you do that? You make yourself extraordinary by doing the ordinary, by giving of your time, your talents, and your heart. He said that this was instilled to him as a young age by watching his father, our father, the late Bobby Smith, who in turn received his example from our paternal grandfather, Arnold Smith, and Wade lived that legacy to its fullest. The other piece of that equation was the support of his loving wife and 2 sons. He clearly said that they played the leading role in his adult life, which enabled him to achieve the accomplishments which he had attained. Wade opened his heart to his students, the youth of the community that he grew up in, to the new Canadians within his school community, to the African Nova Scotian inmates in federal correctional facilities, and he and Sherry opened their home and served as mentors and surrogate parents to community youth. His life was one of giving and service to others. Sometimes when you're young and you think about the age of 50, it seems like an eternity away. Until you get there, then you realize it really isn't all that old. On June the 2nd, an earth-shattering and life-altering event happened that changed things forever in the Jackson and Smith households. But the legacy and life lessons of Sherry's husband, Jaden and Jackson's father, and the little brother to Thane, Mark, and Leslie will endure for future generations if we continue to follow his model of keep it simple, keep it smooth, and keep it moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. I think that's actually my new motto now, too. Next, we have Angela Simmons, who has demonstrated outstanding leadership and dedication in her work with and for the communities of North and East Preston on land titles clarification. Her work, advocacy, and resilience contributed to correcting a 2-century-long historical wrong when land had been given by the Crown to Black Loyalists, Maroons, and War of 1812 refugees without clear title and deed. In September, the province of Nova Scotia announced an investment of $2.7 million over 2 years to help residents to obtain title to the land in numerous African Nova Scotian communities. We present this award to Angela Simmons in recognition of her commitment to human rights by helping African Nova Scotians obtain title to their land. Angela.
A long walk. Good morning, honored guests, and thank you everyone for coming. I just want to take a moment and say a few words. First, I'd like to acknowledge that African Nova Scotians is a founding culture in this province, that we are a resourceful people of strength, wisdom, and resilience. And I stand here accepting this award on the shoulders of my ancestors who have fought for over 400 years before me. I also must thank the families and community members who trusted me to tell their stories, trusted me when they were struggling with their own frustrations and facing barriers beyond their control, who continue to put their trust in me to see this through, to ensure that they have received clear title to their property. As I've always said, this is a human rights issue and is not a property issue. And I would not have been able to emphasize this very fact and address the historical injustice if not for the Nova Scotia Barrister Society, the many lawyers who worked on this project with me, Dahazi's Law, Indigenous, and Mi'kmaq initiatives, several individuals at the African Nova Scotian Affairs, several individuals with HRM's Taxation Department, and Diversity and Inclusion. And now I'd like to thank the formerly group of the African Nova Scotian Coalition, who I am now part of. I'm especially grateful to the Nova Scotia Community College Journalism's Professor Aaron Moore and the phenomenal students who actually have put the stories to life and made sure that this was delivered, maintained, and stayed to become national attention. Also, thank you to the Human Rights Committee for recognizing this issue and acknowledging me. I'm very humbled by this award. Never would I have imagined that being rewarded and celebrating for simply doing what is right. And I thank you for this nomination. To the many family and friends who have supported me, and finally, to my husband, Dean. Thank you for your continued support, love, and constant encouragement. When I was burdened with emotions and fear and sadness on so many occasions, you wouldn't allow me to give up. So thank you. Together, we have built a foundation in our children to always work hard, do good, and never forget where they come from. AJ, Angelina, and Andre, my beautiful children, I'm so very proud to be your mother. You three give me purpose, and I'm continuously inspired and motivated by the life that you live. It is because of your unconditional love that I'm able to be the woman that I am. I'm extremely proud to accept this award on behalf of the work and for all of those families and communities who continue to trust in me and are continually impacted by this problem of the land title. Thank you.
Next, we have a musical performance from Cindy Kane, here from Citadel High. This is going to be a real treat.
So it's Casual Friday tonight. So this song I'm about to do is about Viola Desmond and just how she fought for us and stood up for us. And this is the first time I'm going to do it with this track. Are we okay? Actually, I did it with Carson Downey Band. We're good? Okay. So you guys get a little special treat. This is the first time doing it with the track. So I'm gonna need you guys to clap your hands. Hold on a sec. Right here. Hey, come on. Hey. November 8th, 1946. Her car broke down, had to get it fixed. To pass the time, went to the picture show. Hey, let me tell ya how it goes. She bought a ticket and paid up there.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Next, we have a very brief video, Mi'kmaq Rights, We Are All Treaty People.
There has to be an acknowledgement that there's this history where indigenous peoples were treated the way they were and dehumanized, and indigenous people were the victim of cultural genocide.
To move forward with reconciliation, I think we really need to have people self-educate. I teach Indigenous studies, and what I see my students do a lot of the time is they're educating themselves. They're being proactive to find out, what does it mean to be a treaty person? What are the Indigenous contributions to the world? That makes a real difference in how they interact with Indigenous people.
We have to take a look and try to find a way to decolonize our spaces and places around us. So decolonizing our way of thinking, decolonizing our way of being. I am hopeful that we'll all be able to move forward in the way that our treaty's intended. And here in Nova Scotia, we firmly believe that we're all treaty people.
Our next award is Human Rights Award of Rocky Jones Individual Award. For this award, I'd like to invite Cheryl Knockwood, Human Rights Commissioner, and to Nicole. This award goes to Nicole Doria and Miss Tracy Grant Jones, here present. Our next individual award is presented to Nicole Doria. Nicole Doria leads the Indigenous Health Interest Group, IHIG, at Dalhousie University, which creates a place for students interested in improving the health of Indigenous people and reducing Indigenous health inequities. She works within DAL to increase representation of Indigenous people in the medical profession and to advance Indigenous curriculum in health professions. This award recognizes Nicole Doria for her commitment to promoting human rights in support of the health of Indigenous people. Nicole Doria.
Thank you. Most of my work is in advocating for Indigenous health and wellness, victims of sexualized violence, and ending rape culture. Though there is much work yet to be done in all of these areas, especially now, given that we can no longer ignore that both the treatment of Indigenous peoples and the pervasiveness of sexual violence in this province are human rights issues. The silence has been broken, and it continues to break. And I think this gives us all an opportunity to engage and participate in listening, learning, and reconciliation, to do better and to work together to create meaningful change and build a Nova Scotia that is healthier, safer, and a fairer place to live. It is an honor and a privilege to receive this award today, and I want to share it with the countless amount of groups and people in this province who tirelessly work to promote, protect, and respect the rights of all Nova Scotians. Thanks again, and congratulations to the other award recipients today.
Next we have another very brief video, Accessibility for All.
The vision that we have for Nova Scotia is to be one of the leading jurisdictions in North America when it comes to accessibility. The government has set a commitment in law that by 2030 we will be completely accessible in our province.
Nova Scotians can really make a difference in the lives of persons with disabilities by first recognizing that we're talking about ourselves. We will all have a disability at some point.
When you're in a wheelchair or if you're disabled, you don't walk or roll alone. You do it with a family member. So if you just include direct family members, we're talking 540,000 Nova Scotians. So if you're a business, I think you'd want to become accessible.
Empathy is the key to getting a more inclusive and barrier-free society. And the way to do that is by humanizing people with disabilities so people see that our needs are reasonable.
The basis of the Accessibility Act for Nova Scotia is based on the human rights legislation. So that's the foundation, and we build on that.
So next is the presentation for group organization. This award, I'm going to ask Diana Whalen to please come to the stage to present this award to the Bill 59 Community Alliance. We're going to invite Jerry Post to give remarks. In a few moments, he'll accept the award. But I did want to say a few words about the Bill 59 Community Alliance and their extraordinary advocacy efforts. They were instrumental in contributing to the important amendments to the Nova Scotia accessibility legislation earlier this year. And it was a wonderful example of how a community of interest can come together to assert their rights as humans and make a difference in the lives of Nova Scotians. This award is presented to members of the Bill 59 Community Alliance in recognition of their advocacy for the rights of persons with disabilities here in Nova Scotia. And Jerry Post will be accepting this award from Diana Whalen. I'd like to invite the other members of the Bill 59 Community Alliance to please come to the stage if they like. We'd like to get a photo with you. I'm also going to read the name. Not every member of the Alliance was able to be present today, but I do want to make sure I read the names, and we do have framed certificates as well for all members. And I'll start, of course, with Jerry Post, Barry Abbott, Will Brewer, Stephen Esty, Leonard Prera, Clarendon Robichaud, David Lepowski, Amy Parsons, Elliot Richmond, Frank O'Sullivan, Archie Kaiser, Jean Coleman, Linda Campbell, Nancy Beaton, Parker Donovan, Pat Gates, Elizabeth Dowell, Paul Viano, Sheila Wildman, and posthumously to Diane Pothier and Barb Legay.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. This is quite an honor, and it's very unexpected. I would also like to thank our Premier for his government commitment that they made about 5 years ago to have an Accessibility Act. So we have to thank the government. But equally important is, I think, is for us to also thank all the political parties in the legislature in Nova Scotia, and that just became a joint effort. And I guess, human rights should not have any political boundaries, and it was displayed in this case. So thank you very much. I think one of the things that this initiative displayed is that the magic can happen when a community comes together in a very positive way and works jointly with governments and all political interests to achieve a common cause. The collaborative initiative that was set up, we have to thank Diana Whalen for that. Thank you, Diana. At the time she was Minister of Justice, and I think it took quite a bit of courage to invite the community to sit at the table with the policymakers and legislative drafters for us to help them draft legislation. It was the first time in the history of the province that this sort of collaborative initiative was undertaken, and I think because of it, right now we have probably the strongest Accessibility Act in Canada, if not North America. So hopefully this will set a model for other pieces of legislation to follow. But I think what was critical was we had this incredible group of volunteers in the community that came together and worked very hard. We also had tremendous support from Dow Law School in making it happen, and we have to thank some people there, Archie Kaiser and Sheila Wildeman, two very bright, brilliant people basically, who helped guide us towards what we achieved. As well, equally important was the support we received from people within the Department of Justice. Some of the staff there worked very hard on long hours, met with us on the weekends and in the evenings, and accommodated us. And specifically, you have to thank Catherine Berliner and Adriana Maloney. Thank you very much for that wonderful effort. Unfortunately, two of our Alliance members are unable to be here because they are no longer here with us. And they are Professor Diana Pache and Barb Legay, two brilliant legal minds who I think right now are looking at us and probably smiling, and I would like to dedicate this award to them. Thank you.
Now we have a video, Immigrants Bring Life. It's a short video.
Nova Scotia cultural diversity makes Nova Scotia a great place to be by welcoming the new people that come here.
It's a good feeling to watch immigrants thrive. By being aware of our differences and understanding one another, we're able to make a bigger impact in our community and our province.
Nova Scotians can make an effort to be more inclusive by reaching out to the new immigrants when they come here. Not just by participating in the various cultural shows and activities that are taking place, but actually getting to know your neighbor, what their dreams, ambitions, what brought them here to Nova Scotia. And you will come to realize that they consider themselves a part of it just as much as you do.
You see people from diverse cultural backgrounds come in here, stay.
When you hear that racism, when you hear those prejudices, it's really important that we don't let those go by. And a diverse population brings in new people. People bring people, people keep people.
Our next Human Rights Awards presentation is in the group category, group or organization category. Syria Antigonish Families Embrace Society. Short form, SAFE. By the Honorable Lena Diab, Minister of Immigration. I would like to welcome you. I would now like to invite the Honorable Lena Diab, Minister of Immigration, to present the next award. SAFE, or Syria Antigonish Families Embrace, formed in 2015 in response to the Syrian refugee crisis, with the goal of sponsoring and supporting families to come to Antigonish. Since then, it has led an unprecedented effort of community mobilization, fundraising, education, and community partnerships to provide English as a second language education for refugees' families. SAFE has changed the community of Antigonish its attitudes about refugees and newcomers, and even its identity with respect to cultural and religious diversity. This award is presented to SAFE in recognition of its work to promote human rights by resettling Syrian refugees' families. SAFE. And some of your members, please do come.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge Premier McNeil, federal, provincial, and municipal leaders, the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission, the commissioners, CEO and staff, fellow nominees and recipients, invited guests. We have children and youth, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sheila Sears, and on behalf of more than 100 volunteers and supporters, I'm honored and humbled to accept this Nova Scotia Human Rights Award for Syria Antigonish Families Embrace, and as you heard, affectionately known as SAFE. Thank you so much. SAFE is a community organization, and our goal is to sponsor Syrian refugee families to come to Antigonish. So as you heard, we formed in May of 2015 in response to the civil war in Syria and the human rights abuses perpetrated against the citizens of that country. Our hope was to resettle one family in Antigonish. However, with the outpouring of support from individuals, organizations, businesses, and with the changes made by the federal government that opened Canada's doors to Syrian refugees, SAFE has been able to welcome 5 families to Antigonish. We're expecting our sixth family in February of 2018 and another later next year. We are constantly amazed and humbled by the generosity of our community. SAFE is also supported by Saint FX for SAFE. They raise awareness and funds through the university. And we're also grateful for the work and cooperation of 2 other community groups helping to settle Syrian families in Antigonish, and they are CARE and TriHeart. SAFE members come from all segments of our population, from all backgrounds, abilities, ages, and circumstances. We are young and old, moms, dads, grandparents, kids. We are students, working, unwaged, retired, people who make things, people who sing, Antigonish born and Antigonishers by choice. We support families as they explore their new community, come to accept the realities of winter, and become confident to advocate for themselves. We celebrate as children begin school, they make new friends, they learn to swim, they learn to drive. We watch families settle into, contribute to, and help shape our community. We are a better, more loving society because they live here. Through our efforts, we're learning how to be more supportive and welcoming, but we also have to act on other fronts, to raise awareness about the plight of displaced people, to push for better policy to support newcomers to Canada, and dispel myths around refugees. We're deeply touched by the courage of the Syrian families. It's impossible to imagine living through the terrors of war, leaving children, parents, siblings, friends, and homes behind, and starting over in rural Nova Scotia. Our deepest wish is for the war to end and for peace to settle on Syria. Thank you again to the Commission for this award.
Okay, next we have a very brief video, Hope for Gender Equity.
We're living in fragile times. We are still searching for equality, and we are still fighting for the right to be equal. And you can see that in terms of employment, you can see it in terms of violence against women.
We have made some progress. One of the areas would be just more awareness around women's issues, around inequities that women face.
Women's rights are now understood to be human rights. And I think that the reproductive rights, the right to safety, the right to equality, these were rights that were not understood under the law 50 years ago.
We need to work to shift attitudes and values around gender. I know that young girls and women are already on the cusp of showing the world what they can do in terms of making change. They're already aware of gender inequities, and I see hope for the next generation.
I would now like to invite Eunice Harker, Chair of the Human Rights Commission here in Nova Scotia, to present the next Group Organization Award to Women's Wellness Within. Women's Wellness Within, I met them a few months ago now, and I was just so impressed with the work that they were doing. They fill a significant gap in healthcare for pregnant and nursing incarcerated women. This organization recognizes a key discrimination within the way the incarceration particularly affects the bodies of women. This award recognizes the work of Women's Wellness Within, which promotes the rights of incarcerated and criminalized women and their children in Nova Scotia. This award is being accepted on behalf of Women's Wellness Within by Martha Painter.
Thank you, everyone. I want to thank the Board of Women's Wellness Within, Emma Halpern, Erin Fair, Al Jones, Lindsay McVicker, Lauren Matheson, Hazel Ling, Claire Riley, and Mel Petrunia, many of whom are here. I want to thank our volunteers who work inside the carceral facilities in this province and in the community. I want to thank the Shabukdo Family Center, the home of Halifax's volunteer doula program. It's a sister organization to us, as is the Elizabeth Fry Societies in mainland Nova Scotia and Cape Breton, who work tirelessly to advance the rights of criminalized women and girls. The emergent work of our organization is to stand with women who are alone. We began this work after hearing about the story of Julie Belota, who gave birth alone, unattended, uncared for, in a jail while she was on remand. And we never want that to happen again. So that's what we do emergently, is we stand there, we are with her. But what we do urgently is make visible what is really very shameful and completely invisible to our society, the lives of incarcerated women. And Our prisons are disproportionately filled with Black, Indigenous, people of color, perpetuating our racist histories. Our fastest growing population in our prisons is women, particularly actually Indigenous women. 1/3 of the women in our prisons are Indigenous. Most of incarcerated women are mothers. Most of them have histories of homelessness, deep, profound poverty. And 90% have experienced sexual or physical trauma. Most are experiencing mental illness and addiction when they arrive. Up to 70% of incarcerated people are on remand. And that means that they are innocent, they are awaiting trial, and we have still locked them up. We are deporting criminalized individuals who have come to Canada as children and experienced criminalization. We have not supported their citizenship applications. Instead, we are deporting them, and many of these people now have Canadian children. Tens of thousands of children in this country are separated from their parents because our society punishes poverty, addiction, and survival crime. We need to reflect on our impulses to judgment, to control, to punish. We need to change. Women's Wellness Within is working towards a world that supports reproductive justice, the human right for all of us to parent, the human right to have access to perinatal health care and to support, and the right to heal from our traumas. Of course, we dedicate this work and this award to the women who survive inside. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll have a brief video recognizing trans rights.
I think trans people have suffered extreme levels of employment discrimination, a lot of harassment and violence, and we've seen discrimination in housing and healthcare.
In 2012, when the Human Rights Act was amended to explicitly cover trans people, that was an important milestone for that community. Knowing that it was illegal to discriminate against trans people made it a lot easier for people to come out in their workplace.
To be inclusive of transgender people of all ages requires both social and political acceptance. We need non-binary gender markers. We need education at younger levels.
I think the most important front for change today is the real inclusion of diverse gender identities in workplaces and in schools.
What I would hope for is that we get to a point where people really value and appreciate and embrace people's differences.
Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Premier McNeil to join me here on stage to present the next Human Rights Award in the youth category to Joshua Cochran. Since the age of 4 years old, Joshua Cochran has used his musical talents to help raise awareness about autism and many other causes. By the time he was 8 years old, he had raised over $300,000 for various charities. Now, at 11 years old, he uses his personal journey with autism to show the world that people on the spectrum can do anything they love while bringing awareness to the disorder in countries where it is less understood. We present this award to Joshua in recognition of his work to foster an inclusive environment for persons with disability. Joshua?
First, I would like to congratulate the Human Rights Commission as they celebrate 50 amazing years of service, changing the world one day at a time for the rights of everyone, so we can live in a world where everyone has access to services, acceptance, and understanding. Welcome, Honorable Premier Stephen McNeil, CEO, Director of the Human Rights Commission, Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, honored guests, recipients, friends, family, media, and those who served and supplied the great refreshments. I was very excited to hear that I was chosen as one of the recipients of this year's Youth Human Rights Award for 2017. I believe that everyone in the world has the right to live, love, happiness, and accessibility. Through my community service, I have met hundreds of people from over 60 countries. I have learned that in each country there are many different beliefs on what human rights should be. I would show them respect. I would give them ideas on how we do things in Nova Scotia and Canada so that businesses, schools, medical services were made adaptable for everyone. Everyone has the ability to choose kindness. When you choose kindness and acceptance and include everyone, your heart will be happy. It has been proven that those who choose kindness and do good for others have lowered blood pressure and are genuinely healthier and happier. Every day, I promise to choose kindness, understanding, and respect for all. Thank you, Mom, Dad, family, and friends, and my community for always being there for me and supporting all I want to do. I know I can keep you pretty busy. Thank you, Human Rights Commission, for choosing me as the 2017 award recipient. I promise to continue to work hard for the rights of all. Thank you and congratulations to all recipients and happy 50th anniversary.
Goodness, this is my favorite day of the year. Okay, so this year, in recognition of the 50th anniversary year, we had a youth art initiative. We did a call out for artists across the province to go ahead and submit some artwork to us to show us what human rights meant to them. And we're actually going to show some of their beautiful pieces up on the screen. They've been driving around on buses. They've been featured at exhibits all across the province and libraries. Currently they're at the Halifax International Airport. I was just stunned by some of these beautiful pieces of work. We do have a number of the youth who provided this lovely artwork in the audience today, and we are going to invite them up on stage. We'd like to get a photo with them. We also have gifts for you, and we've framed your artwork because now that we've been enjoying using it so much, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to put it up on your own wall, and so that's one of our gifts to you, and we'll make sure that you receive them at the end. I do want to make sure that I read the names of each student who participated. We had Lacey Brown, Andrew Fuller, Clay Cameron, Yusang Cho, Olivia Crook-Simania, Jill Connors, Trinity DeJong, Nene Johnson, Bowen Stokebury Price, Manini Jones Lamont, Milena Ramirez, Lucky Sharp, and Islam Tahina. I really want to congratulate all of these young artists. We're so pleased with your contribution and very grateful. Please come to the stage. We'd love to get a photo with you with the Premier. I invite you to come up on stage.
Gary, tell them I'm not that scary that you
So just as one quick housekeeping matter, we have a number of gifts we need to still give to some of our award recipients, particularly some of our Bill 59 Alliance members, and we also have your framed certificates. So please sit tight after the ceremonies. We're coming to you very shortly. At this time, I would like to invite Premier Stephen McNeil to make some closing remarks for us.
Wow, what a morning. Cindy, I think I'm going to join you every morning, that exercise. When you started singing and I started dancing, the unfortunate part is most people here now realize I have no rhythm. But what an inspiring morning, what an inspiring 50 years. Let me say congratulations and happy anniversary to the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission for your tremendous work that you've been doing on behalf of all Nova Scotians for half a century. We are indebted to you, and we are counting on you to continue to make sure that this province becomes more inclusive into all it can be. I'm humbled to be here at Citadel High, where Wade Smith made such a contribution to the lives of so many young people. I have always believed there is no greater profession to impact our province than teaching. Long after you retire or stop teaching, your lessons have impacted those who you were in front of. And when it's done well, it is really impactful. And Wade had done an outstanding job of making sure that the values that, as Craig laid out here this morning, were taught to him by his parents and grandparents, he instilled in generations of students in this building and buildings across our province, ensuring that they make this province a more inclusive one. And I am humbled to be here at his school. Nicole, thank you for your continued and great work ensuring that the health of Indigenous people is at the forefront of our minds. We are all treaty people. Over 400 years ago, Membertou welcomed our ancestors to this great province in peace and friendship. And the treaties that are the foundation of this province were signed by people representing all of us. And we all have rights and responsibilities associated with those treaties, and we need to make sure that we continue to remind ourselves that we are all treaty people. Angela Simmons, thank you for your continued work in dealing with the issue of land title. It is critical that once and for all that we ensure that it is a human right that those of African Nova Scotia descent have the right to have access to their own property just like every other Nova Scotian. And let me assure you, as your Premier, I will continue to work side by side with you to make sure that we do right and get this settled. Joshua, you inspire me more and more every time I see you. What a great presentation you made, and I want to tell you how proud I am of you for your great work that you're doing on behalf of so many people just by being kind. What a great way to look at how each of us should start our day and end our day, just by being kind to one another. Joshua, thank you for being such a great example of that. Syrian and Enish families, thank you very much. One of our proudest moments as a country, I believe, is when the federal government decided that we had a role to play in ensuring that Syrian families had a new country to come to. And the success of that has only been rooted in the fact that communities like Antigonish and organizations and members of individual communities across our province and indeed across our country have come together and responded in a kind and human way to this humanitarian crisis that was happening in Syria. And you've been such a wonderful example of what can happen when we all work together to ensuring that we give everyone the dignity of quality of life. So congratulations to all of you. To the Women's Wellness Within, your stats are alarming and are frightening, and we have more work to do. But you continuing to work hard, continuing to make sure that those stats are in the forefront of all of our minds, in our faces, making sure, continually remind us that there's more work to do. We will continue to work with you to ensure that we provide dignity to all Nova Scotians, all those, even those, quite frankly, who are incarcerated inside of our province. Bill 59 Community Alliance, thank you. What a wonderful example of what can happen when government and community work together in such a straightforward, common way to do what was right. I can tell you one of the memorable days of being the Premier was the day that our Speaker, Kevin Murphy, actually accessed the Speaker's chair in the House of Assembly. We were the first chair in the House in any Parliament in the Commonwealth to be accessible, and that was in 2013. And I've seen many Nova Scotians who've also come to our House since and have taken their place in the Speaker's chair. And what an emotional experience it is for them to finally be able to access the Speaker's chair in the House of Assembly. What a powerful moment that is for any Nova Scotian to be able to witness it. But what we've embarked on here is ensuring that not only will it be the Speaker's chair in the House, but that we will make this province a more accessible one for all Nova Scotians. And it's been your leadership working across party lines with all parties to ensure that this province can lead this federation and indeed lead beyond Canada in what it's like to make an accessible, inclusive community. Thank you. It was my hope and continues to be my hope that we as a province, that more Nova Scotians see themselves within inside of our province. For far too long, too many of us have never seen themselves inside of this province. Whether it's through systemic racism against the African Nova Scotia community, racism against the Aboriginal community, accessibility. Too many Nova Scotians did not and could not see themselves within inside of our important institutions and province. If we are ever going to achieve all we can be, each and every one of us is going to feel like we have an important role to play and that others feel and appreciate that the role and the skills that we bring to our task together. One of the alarming things for me when I became the Premier of a province, when I looked at the judiciary and the bench, how many African Nova Scotians were not even recognized on the judiciary. We just appointed the first Mi'kmaq to the bench in Nova Scotia. Think about that for a second. The country may be 150 years old. This province is over 400 years old. The founding people were here longer than that. For the first time, we just appointed the first member of the Aboriginal community, the Mi'kmaq, to the bench. When you look at the numbers of people, when you look at the people standing before our courts, and the overwhelming number of Aboriginal and African Nova Scotians who are standing before our courts, and yet they can never see themselves very people who are looking down and judging and looking at them don't reflect who they are. That should not be our province. You have to be able to see yourself in this province in order to be able to aspire to be everything we can be. Let's acknowledge, I've acknowledged this when I was dealing with, when we were working with the Home for Colored Children and Tony Smith. Let's acknowledge that as great as this province is, and as great as our history has been, there have been challenges. There has been systemic racism. Our ancestors have not done so well. Let's acknowledge that. Let that be the foundation of moving forward together. Acknowledging the wrongs and charting a path that allows all of us to see ourselves inside of this province and see ourselves playing a role in a way of building this province in a thoughtful, caring, kind, loving way. We have so much potential. We have so much potential as a province. We have so many special people who are out there working hard, wanting to make a difference in the lives of individuals. Let's give everyone the chance to achieve that. Let's unlock the kindness that Joshua talked about in each of us. And let's unlock that kindness towards one another and ensuring that each of us, regardless of who we were born to, where we were born, if we're living in this province, that we can be part of achieving so much that we have to offer. And I want to leave, I think it was Craig who said, keep it simple, keep it smooth, keep it moving. That should be our motto. Let's keep it simple, be kind, respect one another, treat people with dignity, treat people with respect, allow people to reach their own dreams and ambitions, judge them based on them. As Martin Luther King would say, the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Keep it smooth, and let's keep it moving as a province. Thank you all so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Premier McNeil, for those inspiring words. And I want to thank everyone for coming today. Congratulations again to the award recipients. You are an inspiration to all of us. We ask if you can to stick around for a few minutes. We'd love to get a few more photos with our photographer. But again, I just want to thank all of our guests today for coming and honoring these incredible individuals in our province. I feel grateful every day for civil society in this province and all of the work they do, often off of the side of their desks, to help advance human rights in this province. We're tremendously grateful. And again, thank you again for sharing this with us today. Have a great day.